There are two very important principles related to the festival of Pesach. The one is called the mitzvah of Zecher and Sippur. Remember the Exodus from Egypt. It is a call that is repeated every single day of the year, whether it is in the Shema, whether it's when we say Kiddush on Friday night, whether it is engaging with different mitzvot. Remember that we went out of Egypt. Remember when we went out of Egypt. And then we have Pesach, and in particular Pesach night, where we have a second obligation called Sippur Yetziat Mitzrayim. Remember tell the story about the Exodus from Egypt. Go into all the details, as it says in the Haggadah. The more you tell the story, the greater the event is, the greater it is for the person who's engaging in it, listening to it, and absorbing the story. What is the difference between Zachor, remembrance, and Lesaper, telling the story? And we just experienced Pesach, and we know that when we came to Pesach, we went into great detail in the story. We ate the foods of Pesach. We tasted the matzah, the bread of freedom. We tasted the bit of maror to try and get a taste of that difficulty, of the bitterness of the exile. We tasted the salt water to remind us of the tears and the sweat of the slaves. We have this opportunity to really immerse ourselves within the experience, to share the story, to remember and go into great detail what Pharaoh did to us. Now, that's the mitzvah of Sippur, but it's certainly not the mitzvah of Zecher. Why do we have these two forces of Zecher and Sippur? I heard the following insight by the Rosh Yeshiva, Yeshivat Har Etzion of Moshe Lichtenstein, who said the best way to probably describe it is to understand the difference between Yom Hashoah and Holocaust Remembrance. The Holocaust is a pall and a dark shadow over our community. Whenever we are constantly reminded of the Holocaust, whether it is when we go to a simcha and we are told about our grandparents, or it is the children of survivors, the survivors themselves, the children or the grandchildren, there's constant reminders of the Holocaust themselves. But we don't focus upon the Holocaust. We don't say between 1933 and 1945 this happened, and how many people were murdered in this particular town and that particular town. It is always there, but we don't really focus upon it. But on Yom Hashoah, and for many on Tisha B'Av, it's a day in which we dedicate to learning about the stories, learning about the events. That is Sippur versus Zecher. To remember or to remind it is something that can be happened in a split second. I can be reminded of the event. Some event or a conversation can trigger a memory. But to tell the story, I need time to get myself involved in that particular story. And it's amazing that the moment we have Pesach, we start the Yoms. Yom Hashoa, Yom Hazikaron, Yom Haatzmaut, Yom Yerushalayim. All these Yoms which are there to teach us about this experience. That is not just enough to remember, but we have to tell the story. When I listen to a Holocaust survivor telling their story, or I read a book about it, it's not just a memory, it's telling me a story about what happened. I get involved into the event, I feel it more, it affects me more. And once I've heard the story, when I hear the word Holocaust, it has a different ring to it than prior. And this is what these special days are all about. These yoms, these days of dedication, are not merely enough to commemorate, to mourn, or to celebrate. It's also about telling the stories. And in the same template, as I tell the story of the Exodus, I need to tell the story of the Shoah. I need to tell the story of the establishment of the State of Israel, of the events of 67, to remind me about the importance of those events. Because without those stories, without being mesaper, without hearing the stories and sharing the stories, the events themselves can start, God forbid, to fade away in our memory. And thus, the Torah tells us, Zecher and Sippur. Remember, every day we've got a mitzvah to remember the Exodus. Don't let that memory fade from your conscience. But once a year, we have a chance to Sippur, to get into the depths of the story, to try and really analyze what was going on, and to refocus our energies, reconnect to the stories that was. So whether it is Pesach, Yom Hashoah, Yom Hazikaron, Yom Haatzmaut, Yom Yerushalayim, we have the dual mitzvah of Zecher and Sippur. So use this time of these yoms to watch a documentary, watch a movie, read a book, whether it be history, biography or autobiography, because I guarantee you, as you listen to and read the stories, not only will they inspire you,